I can hear you now. Yes. Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, we weren't talking. I think that was the issue.
We were
just sort of looking at you.
Yeah, this is from when I ran for office in 2014, so long ago. It looks nothing like me now, but I keep it because it's funny to me. So I'm going to keep my camera on the stream, twitch.tv/central_committee. If you guys want to join the chat right now, we got 2,400 viewers.
What?
So we are excited. We're excited for you guys to be here. Thank you so much for joining in. Let me just adjust Megan a little bit here.
Yeah, make sure I look really good in my cool headset.
I have a headset
that
on
I borrowed
too.
from my teenager.
Because honestly, like earbuds, I am a weirdo and I like to listen to the audio of myself talking so I can make sure it's not too bad, because I think bad audio is really harmful to your production. Little production opinion. And nobody's looking at me for me anyway. I'm not Hassan. So thank you guys for coming. Just so you know, chat, this is the DSA's newly elected national co-chairs, Megan Romer and Ashik Siddique. Did I get it close?
That's right. You got it.
I can pronounce names. And you guys were elected, the first ever people elected to hold this office, which was created in the 2023 DSA convention. And I understand that you guys are from different tendencies in the organization. Here on the Central Committee, I consider myself a platformist as far as DSA, and I try not to take any sides in sectoral disputes because, as much as not, I have my own opinion, but I just try to encourage people to join. And then let you guys deal with it instead of trying to pick a winner. Anyway, you guys share a commitment to growing the mass movement that is big and strong enough to take on the largest and most violent empire in the history of the world. So if you guys would like, starting with Megan, if you want to give a little bit more biographical background of who you are, why we should care, and what is a national co-chair in your mind?
Yeah, so we're kind of building the plane as we fly it, as they say. So what is a national co-chair? Well, we're kind of figuring that out as we go. But we've been elected to be political leadership of the organization, to do outward facing spokesperson work, which includes fun Twitch streams, which, confession, I don't think I've ever watched a Twitch stream, but I have been on them before. So that's, I watch them when I'm on them, because that's...
Yeah, I'm pretty much number 2 as far as the Twitch streams for leftists go. You know, I'm about 10% the size of Hassan's. You usually get, so I usually get a few thousand people every day. So it's pretty good.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I feel like I've pushed a number of people toward DSA over the years.
Yeah.
And you could talk about that later, but finish this first. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, all good. So Megan, she, her, I originally started organizing in DSA in Southwest Louisiana, and then moved back, did a stopover for about a year in New York City, and then moved back to where I'm from, which is the Finger Lakes, rural central New York. And I'm a mom. I have a teenager, which is really weird, but fun. And I have done a lot of mutual aid organizing, specifically around hurricane relief. I'm also, I did electoral staffer work for a while, as a comms person. So yeah, I have, coming at this socialism thing from a few different angles. But excited to be here, excited to have this opportunity to, talk to people all over the country, all over the world, even.
All over the world, yeah.
Yeah, and this is like absolute kryptonite for my ADHD. Like, I'm trying to talk and I'm like reading the comments at the same time. I'm trying.
Yeah.
So
leave it to me. I'll pick out the gold. Yeah, don't worry.
Know.
Everything's going to be positive.
But I saw someone say Ithaca Corning Watkins. I'm in Cayuga County, so I'm closer to Auburn. But so hi, chat from near us.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, these are all if you see a rose next to someone's name, that's a dyed in the wool socialist. So as you can see, it's only nice people here right now. All right, Ashik, on to you. Biographical details and what is National DSA co-chair?
Yeah, you also asked why should people care? I'm not sure about that answer, but I give you direct answers to the other ones. So yeah, I joined DSA in early 2017 with the, post Bernie 2016 like Trump bump. I was living in Washington DC at the time, so I got involved in Metro DC DSA because they were on the ground, doing stuff, protests and everything. And I was just like, okay, what is useful to do now as a socialist, which I guess I am after supporting Bernie. And before that, I was sort of politicized in waves, like a lot of millennials. Like I was at Occupy Wall Street, living in New York City at the time. Like I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I was living there after college, like working at a job I hated when Occupy happened. So that was sort of a like kind of first wave, like radicalizing moment. After having, broadly been against the Iraq War and hating Bush, but then realizing through the Obama years, like, oh wait, actually not much is changing.
Yeah.
So yeah, after Occupy, I got involved in climate organizing, which I was doing for a couple of years, and then got really into the Bernie campaign. And then through that period, I sort of got disillusioned with sort of nonprofit-run advocacy groups, or just realizing like environmentalism was, sort of steeped in a lot of types of liberalism, and realizing what was actually necessary against the climate crisis and like restructuring our whole society to survive that would necessitate major political and economic transformations, which is how I became a socialist over time. So yeah, when DSA grew in those years, I was part of that. I helped build up the Washington DC chapter. I got really involved in sort of eco-socialist organizing within DSA, like figuring out what are eco-socialist campaigns, like what makes us different from just liberal environmentalism, and just really started to develop what became our Green New Deal organizing campaigns. And really trying to emphasize the labor angle and all of that, and just trying to integrate that with like labor and electoral work in DSA. So that's why I got involved in national DSA work. And I got elected to the National Political Committee in 2021, and this is my second term. And now I'm serving with Megan as co-chairs.
All right, so I think the big question that thank you both for those introductions, and I think you'll find I share a lot of those biographical details with you guys, and I just so happened to start a stream in 2019 as a side project, and then it became so popular that it became my main project. But let's just say that one of the big questions that everybody has is the DSA's perspective toward the 2024 elections. What is your guys' thoughts on that? And I guess we'll start with Siddique, Mr. Siddique, the first time on this one. What's your perspective toward electoralism and the 2024 elections, and what should our strategy be? Approach. And can I just ask one more element to that question, which is, what should a socialist perspective be toward Joe Biden in light of the Gazan genocide?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a bleak situation overall. I think we've all been feeling it for many months now. I mean, for years, like through the Biden administration, but now especially since this genocide started in August. It's been it's really I think reinforced for us at a baseline that our goal is more long term. Like we've been lucky to have in the past two presidential cycles Bernie Sanders that helped grow DSA a lot. Having this kind of flagship, like representative of democratic socialism, like really campaigning on things that we broadly agreed on as things that are necessary. We don't have that this time. And we knew that we were likely to have that after 2020. So I think already DSA's electoral focus really has been on building the bench, on local, state, municipal offices, just getting people elected who are much more tightly integrated with DSA, who are working in much more strong, like mutual relationships with DSA chapters, with our organization, to advance goals after they're elected, like not just, say being one of many progressive organizations that endorse somebody as part of a coalition, and then we just hope for the best once they're in office. But we've been developing models across DSA chapters that we call socialists in office structures. Like basically, the structure varies from chapter to chapter, but broadly it's committees that bring together a lot of the work of the chapter, whether it's various kinds of issue-based campaigns or whatever, and working with the office that's now elected to advance those goals and figure out like, what are the things coming up? Like, are there things to try to like campaign against once you're in office that are bad, or actually trying to advance things, like even if you might not win them. And there are really good examples of that across the country. Like the biggest one is New York City DSA. At this point, they have a whole block of people in the state assembly and state senate who are
Right.
advancing bills together and like actually passing some bills.
Yeah.
So that's really the model. And, that's not a direct answer to your question about the presidential election. But for me, like my answer kind of just starts with like, well, it's going to suck. Like whatever happens, like we're not going to be able to push at the federal level a lot of things that we want. Like we knew that pretty quickly with the Biden administration starting. Like I think in the first year, there was a sense of like, let's try it. Let's campaign on different things. Like our main national focus for months was the PRO Act, protecting the right to organize, which was the main focus of labor. So we thought if we could get that passed, that would be huge for the labor movement. It could grow the power for the left, like with like reorganized, like stronger, more militant labor as a back of that. That didn't happen. A bunch of the climate stuff we wanted didn't happen. So, it became pretty clear that a lot of good things
we don't have a partner with the Biden administration is basically the conclusion. I mean, and I think that's totally fair. Just last week I had a couple people running for let's see, it was county board in Milwaukee on here, and we've helped a number of socialists get elected to the Wisconsin state legislature here. And obviously we've supported various left-wing congressional candidates here. The reason why I ask about, and then Megan, I want your thoughts on this as well. I think a lot of people, at least me in particular, are feeling a little bit like there's not a strong electoral path. And like it or not, a lot of people that are casually interested in politics or perhaps recruiting possibilities for us get their contact to politics through electoral campaigns and because that's like the basis for so many people's entry into it. But with Joe Biden and this genocide that he's doing, it's hard for us to even kind of interface with that. Do you find that to be a challenge, and do you have any more thoughts on that? I'm sorry to ask you so much about this. It's just, in my community, it's a big question of what do we do when we have this ongoing atrocity that, people are now starving to death by the thousands.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's horrifying. I mean, I keep saying this, like you think you've seen the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. And then another image comes up and another video comes up and you're like, I didn't know there were worse things, but they keep coming. Just, horrifying to the level where it's like difficult to even comprehend that it's happening, but it's almost more difficult to comprehend that like people apparently don't care and they think it's fine and they think it's fine to send more money to this. And they think like there's a lot of like Joe Biden apparently does not like listen to reason. Like staffers have been telling him allegedly, like we're getting these leaks from the White House. People are, trying to explain to him how bad it is and he doesn't care. It's wild. No appeal to morals or reason. It's just yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's always been happening. This has always been the case. It's just we have, Twitter now, so we see. So
I do agree. I agree with you, Megan, but I would say that that this is actually kind of a new level of genocidal. It's one thing to have an apartheid, which is horrifying, and we all are opposed to it. But now to actively be physically destroying the entire Gaza Strip and removing all the necessities of life. This is just really on my mind right now. And I'm hyper fixated on it because I feel like any amount of weight we put into protecting children is worth the shot. And, I want to be able to sleep at night. And it's hard to when Joe Biden is doing a genocide in front of all of us. And I don't think this is just a continuation. It feels like an escalation.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it's other times. I mean, I don't know. I think other recent, genocides, various things that have happened in West Africa, in in other places. It seemed like people, it was easier to get. I don't know. We weren't like as entangled with the genociders. Like this is so weird, and we're just in this terrible place. So anyway, the question is, what do we do about Biden? We haven't come to a full organizational decision on that yet.
Yeah.
We have an NPC meeting with all of us in a week and a half, and we will hopefully have one of our things for that is deciding an official platform for the election season. I think I don't have an answer. I do know that we are just absolutely in lockstep about defending particularly Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib,
definitely,
who are just out there sticking their necks out. Yeah, so Summer Lee is not a DSA endorsed elected, but she is sticking her neck out for sure. And so, respecting who our comrades in office see as their strong colleagues is
fair enough. Yeah,
something we try to do. Whether or not we endorse them is a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add too, I mean, just like the demoralization around electoral politics that you're talking about is so real, and we're hearing it at every level. Like, my family is Muslim, they immigrated from Bangladesh, and mostly have been loyal Democrats for a long time. Like, I was berated by uncles and aunts about supporting Bernie because they supported Biden, because they loved it so much.
Yeah.
And over Thanksgiving, like, some of those same relatives were just like, we can't vote for Biden. Like, we can't watch CNN anymore. It's all like Zionist propaganda. And I was like shocked to hear that. And that's happening, really for huge segments of the population that are significant that, we've been talking about, like Michigan.
The abandoned Biden campaign. I talked about that before you guys got on here. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's, that's in the air the next few weeks. So all that stuff is really real. But I think the difference for us with electoral politics and how we're engaging is that, in building the bench, like, we have all these candidates now who are at the local level who, like, immediately, as soon as this started, they were out front calling for a ceasefire and, like, liberation for Palestinians, and, like, this is unacceptable. And, like, a bunch of the New York City candidates, like in Delaware, like a state representative, Medina Wilson-Anton, has been, like, leading protests, like, at Biden's house. So that's kind of a difference now versus, even 20 years ago after 9/11, when the Iraq War started. Like, one person in Congress, Barbara Lee, who was against invading Afghanistan, and even that, her criticism of that was pretty measured. Now there are bigger blocs, at least, who are much more, aligned around, like, ceasefire as a minimal demand, and also Palestinians are humans, that deserve basic dignity. Like, that's not something that anyone was saying, like, in Congress, like, even 5 years ago.
So I think if I could summarize what you guys are saying is, obviously we can't dislodge Biden, but we want to do things that are constructive by supporting people that are actively good. And so, yes, we understand how frustrating it is, and we all are opposed to the genocide. So the thing that we can do that will actually help people is to get more people in power that agree with us explicitly. And we should focus our efforts on that instead of feeling dour and down. We need to take that rage and anger we feel towards Biden and channel it into something productive, like supporting the DSA electeds that are actually going to change the conversation.
That's right. And even more importantly, building the organization that is going to back them up to take stands that we care about. It's not just like we elect people and then they're going to say the brave and true things and that'll somehow change things. Like, no, like, I don't believe in speaking truth to power. It's like, power doesn't care about the truth.
Yeah.
Doesn't care if there are lots of people being loud. You have to build the power to threaten them in all sorts of different ways. So that can mean electorally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's why labor organizing is so important to us, because we want workers to be powerful enough to threaten to withhold their labor and, get results that way. So there are all sorts of different ways that, we want to be ready to, like, shut things down and build the alternative and show that, there's real muscle to it. So that's, like, electing people is a really important part of it, but we also have to build the organization that's going to, really have teeth to it.
I think, so I guess that segues to the next topic I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is the other stuff you're doing that isn't electoral, which is like your labor solidarity work and your nationwide trans rights and bodily autonomy campaign. it feels like obviously the National Democrats are getting wobbly on those issues in particular. Maybe as a separate aside, I'm just kind of taking one of the big issues that's developing on that topic right now, maybe as a point to start the conversation, is the UAW's attempt to massively expand their organizing in all the non-union auto workers plants. Is DSA involved in that? And do you guys have a connection to, Sean Fain or people around him? And do you think that, or is there other labor work that you're doing that you want to draw attention to?
I can say briefly. So for a lot of last year, our top national priority was our Strike Ready labor campaign, which was to help support initially UPS Teamsters to prepare for a strike. And then as they settled their contract, it segued to UAW auto workers, which I think is probably the best example right now of what organized, more militant labor union looks like. Like after a reform caucus has won, workers have organized to restructure it, and they've now really been out front for the past few months on Palestine, like coming out for a ceasefire in a way that labor unions really haven't meaningfully engaged in internationalism for like decades in the United States. And that's a real qualitative change in anti-war organizing that I think is a direct result of that rank and file organizing. So I won't go too into the weeds about DSA's like specific roles in it, but there are all sorts of ways that DSA members are involved, like in their locals, like in UAWD, the Reform Caucus. So that's definitely been part of it. Like one of the I think UAW Region 9A, like the current director is a DSA member, Brandon Mencia. So he was the one who actually announced that UAW International is now coming out for a ceasefire back in December. So there are ways, like in DSA, sometimes we don't like to directly claim credit for making things happen, but it just is the case that there are lots of DSA members really leading this work in organized labor. So especially with Palestine right now, I think that's been pretty huge because there are all these unions that have come out in favor of a ceasefire because
I think SEIU did as well, unless I'm misremembering. They did a couple weeks ago.
I don't have the list in front of me, but there are a whole bunch of locals that have come out, like a bunch of teachers unions, like in Massachusetts. I think that one actually was led by a bunch of DSA members who made that resolution pass. So I think that's one of the really exciting differences now with anti-war organizing, for the past few decades, like that now more labor unions and like organized socialists are intervening in very specific ways to build this power. And we'll see where it goes, but it is a big difference than just a few decades ago.
I would also add, we've done a lot of work. We've expanded this program, EWOC, Emergency Workers Organizing Committee. It first kind of popped up mid-pandemic when early pandemic when like bosses were like, no, you have to come into the office and get this deadly disease that there's no vaccine for and nobody, and people were trying to organize around that. And we built out this program in partnership with UE, the electricians union. And basically it's like a flying squad that when you're like, hey, my workplace is, doing this or that, I want to form a union, or sometimes just I want to make a demand. We don't have the power yet to form a union, but we want to make a demand of our boss. Can you help us? And we send in coaches, and they have been behind a number of both like union locals, workplaces joining union locals, right? So getting the shop in a local, but also some independent unions. And so it's really cool. It's a really cool program. If you need help in your workplace, call EWOC. That's what they are there for. I probably can't focus enough to post the link in the chat, but I bet one of your chatters will.
Yeah, chatters, if you want to hunt down the EWOC.
There it is.
Workers organizing. There you go. See, they're right there. They're fast.
Not even out of my mouth. And Comrade Winston had it. Thank you.
Thank you, Winston. And yeah, okay. And so let's draw our attention to the trans rights issue, because I know that for a while there, and just to give some background for my community is aware, but just some for some more of our casual viewers, basically there was this moment where Republicans were really pushing the trans rights issue as a new scapegoat. And they did a lot of moral panics about trans issues. And it seemed that the Democrats, specifically Hillary Clinton, came out and floated some message about how, well, maybe we can compromise on the trans rights a little bit. And it turned out, it seems like it flopped electorally because it seems like it has receded a bit from the right wing's rhetoric. Can you explain to me what DSA is doing with their, bodily autonomy campaign, which includes obviously reproductive rights as well as trans rights?
Yeah. So this campaign's an interesting one. It looks a little bit more like kind of the way our Strike Ready campaign did, as opposed to the way, like, sometimes our national campaigns are like one specific ask and we try to get everybody moving toward it. Other times it's this sort of web of things that are happening at the local level. And this one is the latter. It's different chapters are doing different things. It is going to culminate with I'm not sure culminate, I think, but there's going to be a Trans Day of Visibility action in a lot of chapters. It's really exciting, though. So these things include everything from there's a chapter that is working to get trans name changes paid for by the city government, right? So like when you're dropping the dead name, getting your new legal name, that will just be paid for and not be whatever couple $1,000 it is, right? Yeah. So it's like, so some of them are like, it's not like
it's a collection of, like,
I don't know, it's little
best
local
practices
things
plus money support and things like that to help people transition who may not be able to do it completely on their own.
There are some chapters doing sanctuary city stuff, and we're trying to connect them. There are some chapters who've already done sanctuary city stuff. Like there are several trans sanctuary cities, and we're trying to partner them with chapters who want to do that, so that they can help coach them through what that process might look like. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do. There's some electoral campaigns. One good trans-friendly school board member can make a huge difference to trans kids in a school district, right? So all kinds of different things are kind of being pulled under this umbrella. There's also stuff on the reproductive rights side. Things like there's a chapter that is working, I believe, to get crisis pregnancy clinics labeled as fake clinics. Like the city will put up a sign that says this is not a medical clinic. Things like that. So yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Maybe I mean, okay, how do I phrase this? What about the concept of helping people with reproductive self-help? Maybe this is a little bit crusty, but when you're in a state where abortion is banned and you need an abortion, is DSA a place people can go and find assistance and help in getting the reproductive health care they need? Is this the organization that people should be thinking of as active in the fight to secure reproductive rights on the ground?
I would say in most cases, probably not, because there is a really, really developed network of like abortion access groups, abortion funds, various people who will buy you a bus ticket or drive you. Like those networks kind of exist. What you will see a lot of is, like we always do. What month is it? Is it April is the bowl-a-thon month? But there's a month where like everybody does abortion fund-a-thons, right? And so chapters often chip in on that and have some sort of fundraising event. Definitely, I would say probably your local DSA chapter is connected to your local abortion fund. That is very common. Like I know Orlando DSA, for example, is connected to the Swan Abortion Network, which is they do clinic defense and what's it called? Where you walk somebody from their car.
Clinic escort.
Escort. Thank you. Good Lord. So they do that kind of thing. And they have a TikTok that I've watched where they get into it with the protesters, because it's like the same three protesters all the time. And it's extremely funny how they
Any of those pro-life protesters are actually either paid or they are like subsidized in various ways to be there. There is the right wingers, people underestimate that, but it's actually a huge factor in right wing organizing, is just how much more money is available to anybody who will do it. They're begging for people to go out there and harass people. It's very weird.
Yeah, but also to answer your question a little bit, like we may not be an organization that's going to do that direct service support, but we absolutely are an org that will throw down to protect and expand rights, like from the state that should be universal, like wherever we can. For the past year, like DSA chapters have really thrown down for ballot measure campaigns, and we're like a driving forward in passing those to guarantee abortion access in a bunch of red states.
I think Ohio had one, right? Yeah,
right,
and what, Nebraska? Was it Nebraska or was it Kansas? I can't remember.
It was Ohio, Kentucky, Kansas, and Montana, at least. So those are campaigns that chapters really took the lead on, and DSA, the national org, supported in a bunch of ways. But those, there are other organizations involved, of course, like a bunch of them happened in coalitions, but I think DSA really was a driving force in making those happen and in protecting the rights that were under attack and even expanding them in some cases. So I think we're definitely committed to continuing to do that. That's another way, with electoral politics sometimes being demoralizing, ballot measure campaigns have really been a source of strength across DSA in a lot of chapters where there's an opportunity to put things on the ballot, just referendums or measures. DSA can do a lot independently.
Yeah, that sounds
Unfortunately,
great.
Not every state has ballot measures, which is a drag, because they are a good way to sort of do some direct democracy, and it's so maybe the next thing is to get ballot measures on the ballot in states
where you have to elect people to do it. So anyway, there's sort of operations, developing more long-term plans about.
Personally, I say Bonapartist. We should just get ourselves a left-wing dictator who comes in and implements it all. No, okay.
I'm ready. Put me in. Let's go.
Let me see here. Okay. Well, let's talk about DSA as an org. I think you guys alluded to it when we had Bernie Sanders and, as the kind of torchbearer for democratic socialist ideas. It was somebody that people could trust because he had been at it for so many decades and he had built that legitimacy, and he was saying things that so many people agreed with, but they never heard on TV. That gave us the opportunity to help organize a lot of kind of latent support that was there, but just not aware. But now we are in this kind of like, post-Bernie campaign era where, there is a push the other way, which is, you got to just eat your vegetables and go right wing, because what do you want? Trump to come back? And so how do we as DSA kind of survive that? I understand that the organization had a budget issue, and a lot of other progressive organizations have gone through this, like Justice Democrats and MoveOn.org, and pretty much every big left-wing nonprofit or organization is facing that kind of like financial crunch. What is DSA's, financial situation, and what's going on as far as that goes?
Yeah, I can start to answer. So, like you said, a lot of organizations, political organizations, have been dealing with, different kinds of downturns since 2020, basically, like with the Biden administration and just different political conditions. There's less of a sense of urgency for a lot of people who are just like, oh yeah, Trump was really bad and now a Democrat's president, so we can kind of check out. So immigration, militarism, those are things that Trump was doing badly, but somehow it's different now, which we know is not the case.
Yeah.
That's one big factor just across the board. And also just the pandemic was really bad, like across the board for organizing, like DSA's, in person, like having people meet and like plan to do things together. That was just put on hold for over a year, and that was a big challenge.
Momentum blunting. Yeah.
So yeah, just the blunt, end of the Bernie campaign and then the pandemic was kind of like a 1-2 punch that it's taken a while to recover from. So part of, DSA had really like almost exponential growth from 2016 to 2021. And then, there's been a steady attrition since then, but it's the kind of attrition that I think we've seen that it kind of just comes from like that huge spike that came from people who joined an org like DSA, but then weren't like recontacted in a systematic way. But we find that whenever we had efforts to like, just call members or like, we did things like a recommitment drive to just contact members who had lapsed. Or like in October, when we started a phone banking campaign for Palestine, no money for massacres, that was a reason for lots of members to be contacted and be like, oh yeah, DSA is doing this, great. And we saw a new membership bump from that. So I think when we've done specific things like that, that just demonstrate that we are a national organization with a membership. Like we're not just a mailing list, we're not just a donor list, but we want our members to do things. And when we give opportunities for that, that helps. So, just in a nutshell, like, yes, we have a big budget deficit this year. That's sort of an outcome of, that membership attrition while expenses have continued to grow. So we're dealing with that this year, but we're also planning for major fundraising campaigns that are already underway. Our budget is based pretty much entirely on member dues. And that's been a very relatively stable source of having a budget of at least $5 million just based on our existing membership.
Yeah.
We don't really do systematic fundraising, or we haven't done it in the past the way that plenty of other organizations are just hitting you up for money all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're on a Democratic mailing list, you get these horrible messages from Nancy Pelosi that are just, make you feel miserable. Like we don't want to do that. But
if you don't donate today, socialism loses, barbarism wins.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that I think because we've been so busy organizing with an almost entirely, volunteer like membership base, like we haven't, done some of these internal fundamentals, which we're now doing. So, we're hoping, especially as co-chairs now, like a big part of our role is helping shore this up, like doing a lot of the outward-facing comms, explaining what DSA is, what we're doing, how we're responding to the moment, that we're hoping can pull a lot of threads together this year.
Yeah, just as a broader question, do you guys see DSA as kind of like a repository of, activist knowledge and something that, those of us on the left can always draw from to help build for various issues, shifting between electoral and issue campaigns and various, and supporting protest movements and strikes and just be the hardcore of the left? Is that kind of how you guys see DSA, or do you have it as a different... you have more grander aspirations for it?
Well, I hope we can be a strong mass party core of the left. Like that we are certainly significantly the largest left org in the country, and the largest left org in the country since like the 30s or something. Like, yeah. The first round of Red Scare.
Party, yeah.
Yeah. So and it's really cool that we're member funded and aren't taking money from, a few rich donors who then may or may not have any, power over what we actually do. We get to decide what we are and what the org is doing, and we make those decisions collectively and together, and we struggle through them, which is actually good for us and makes us stronger. So I think we're in a good space. It just, we want to do more things than we have money to do right now. And so we, need members. We need members to, if they're able, to step up and pay what we call solidarity dues, which is when you give 1% of your income to the org, similarly to like the way you would in a union. Yeah, that's what we're hoping to kind of keep growing our membership, keep growing our active membership. So we have people actually, because like just money doesn't do it. Like we do our own work. We are DSA. So I do see somebody asking about community gardens in the chat. There are a number of chapters that have community gardens. There's I mean, it's DSA chapters are pretty autonomous and kind of, we provide some resources, we provide some political direction, but for the most part, they can focus on what makes sense for them. Because in different organizing conditions, it's going to be different. In a place like New York City, they're able to get these big electoral wins. When I was the co-chair in Southwest Louisiana, it was like a R+26 district or something. Like there was no, we wouldn't even be able to get a city councilor. They're mostly Republicans. So
I think that actually draws a very important point for why I think DSA is valuable, because sometimes and this is something that a lot of people in my community faces, they're all over the country, and maybe they are off in an area where there is no left that's been constituted, and they don't have a local chapter, but they still want to be part of the national movement. They can still phone bank, they can still provide dues, they can still occasionally make the drive somewhere, but they want to be part of building the movement wherever they are. And so I think of DSA as a great way of linking up people that are, like you said, in southwestern Louisiana, where they might not elect AOC or some other electoral name, but they have an opportunity to, make an impact, whether it's nationally, and hopefully if they could find 5-10 other people, start their own chapter and get involved in making a difference. And surprisingly, chat, 10 people can make a difference. If they're actually dedicated, you can win a school board seat. You can win, small offices that can show your community that there's another way. And that's part of what it looks like when a movement is growing, is wins in unexpected places and, sources of strength from somewhere you wouldn't expect. That is, I really encourage everybody to join, even if you don't have a local chapter nearby, just to help provide more weight and power to the organization. Let me see what else. Is there any other topics that you guys are, really passionate about with DSA that, or questions you might have for me? We could have more of a discussion period now, or if there's anything in the chat that you've seen. Let me see if I can pull any questions from.
I want to tell a funny story, though. Okay,
yes, go ahead.
So my funny story is that it was probably 3 years ago. I was doing a national new member orientation call, which is everybody who joins DSA gets an invitation to these national new member orientation calls, and it just gives them a quick overview. Here's what the org does. Here's how it works. Here's how you find your local chapter, and so on. And one of the things we did, like early on in the call, we were like, "Hey, what got you to join DSA?" And it was right in the middle of our recruitment drive, if I remember it right. And suddenly, like, everybody in the chat is saying Mike from PA. And I was like, damn, Mike is a great recruiter. And I just thought Mike from PA was just a guy who was just out.
Kilroy. I'm Kilroy.
Yeah, he's like where in PA? He's obviously recruiting lots of people. So it was very funny. And then finally somebody, none of us, I don't know, it was a bunch of old people like me, and we were all like,
I'm old too. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
So you found out I was real. It's like finding Santa Claus is real. Yeah,
totally. And then I was like, I found you on Twitter. I was like, oh. So that is the story of.
Are you sure it wasn't a different? No. Well, thank you. That's a very sweet story.
Well, thank you for sending us so many new members.
Well, I try. Listen, as somebody who I started my stream as kind of a side project with my own frustration. If you want to hear about me, I don't mind talking about myself for a second. But I started as a side project because of my own frustration of seeing, my own Democratic Party activism and electoral activism running into organized money. I was press gang to sit. I had a candidate for Pennsylvania State Senate, and he had a position supporting single-payer health care. And he wanted to pursue that in Pennsylvania, which sounds like a crazy idea, but it's really not that crazy. And we were basically forced by the Democratic Party to sit down with the lobbyist for America's healthcare plans because our position was too extreme. And I was like, this is real. This is how it actually goes. And they were very frustrated that we weren't interested in being lectured to by a guy being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to deny people health care. And, the Democratic Party really went hard against us. The reason why I know clinic escort off the tip of my tongue is because my candidate his wife had been a clinic escort for Planned Parenthood for 20 years. And he had been a major donor to Planned Parenthood of Pennsylvania for decades. And he was denied their endorsement. And it was like, he had hundreds of volunteers. We had hundreds of thousands of dollars. This wasn't a like fringe candidate. This was a strong community-based candidate, and the Democratic Party basically defeated him because he wouldn't sit down with a healthcare insurance lobbyist. That is a personal story that I personally experienced. And that was what made me kind of like radicalized was, wow, not only do they not want to talk about this, if you are popular and you talk about it, they will try to defeat you for a Republican. And that is kind of the personal experience I had. And it's not like an opinion. It's something that I lived through. And that's why, I've been trying so hard to build alternatives and, I do okay. So I appreciate you saying that at least some of my viewers got off their ass and joined the organization. Okay, well, let's see. The big question that people are always curious about is basically how do they get DSA in their area if they don't have a local chapter? Like, do you guys recommend trying to form your own chapter? I was peripherally involved in forming a chapter in the Lehigh Valley, and back years ago there was a chapter. It took 5, I think, to do an organizing committee, and then 10 for a chapter. This is very hazy. This was years ago, but what are the steps required to form a chapter? Do you recommend that as something for people to pursue, or do you have some other way for people to get their energy out?
Yeah, well, you just laid out what is the very basic process, and we generally do recommend and have resources and support for folks who want to start chapters in places where they don't exist yet. And so first, certain number of like minimum group of people, I think it's 5 to 10. It might have increased more, but you start an organizing committee. The national organization gives a whole checklist and like sets of resources about what that entails. And then as you go through the process of developing this organizing committee and getting things off the ground, then there's additional criteria to formally become a chapter. So right now we have somewhere around 200 chapters formally, but they really vary in how they function, the level of activity. And that's really been an ongoing challenge, especially for the past 3 years, like this period, like through the pandemic that we talked about, where a lot of chapters have struggled to maintain activity. Some are doing, like plenty of them are doing great stuff on their own, experimenting in all sorts of ways. But I think we're at a point now where we're trying to figure out how to kind of give more consistent, systematic support with our existing capacity. So we have like a relatively small staff with field organizers. We have about 7 of them right now. Who each are assigned like 30 to 40 chapters to try to support, which is a lot. So that's a huge difference. We have a bunch of organizing committees nationally, like the Growth and Development Committee that builds out resources. So we have all sorts of support that we're trying to build out. But it kind of is the case that there growth and bust cycles and chapters just depending on their local conditions. So it can take a lot of work to maintain a chapter well, but if you get a good crew together, if you build a system, structures of operating and like setting up meetings, like those are all things that we have trainings for. So we definitely encourage folks who are interested and not like other people who are down to give it a try. We can definitely help support that. We also have at-large membership. So like you said, like if you don't have a chapter in your area or if you're just busy, like too busy to be locally involved, we try to build out ways for at-large members to participate too in different kinds of national work, or just be a dues paying member. You don't have to like do things necessarily. Just being
all right. Who's got the membership link? I'm sorry to cut you off there. I'm just trying to. Who's got the new membership link here? Okay, well, let me just find it myself.
It's dsausa.org/join.
Oh, easy.
Yeah, that's like the easy quick one, and then that's like it redirects to this longer thing. But yeah.
All right, how much do you guys still do lifetime memberships, or is that canceled?
No.
Did you just get rid of that?
Just got rid of it.
We just got rid of it. We're not actually canceling the lifetime members. This was a bit of a kerfuffle. like we don't actually. Well, there was actually a joke about.
I'm stumbling into all of the. I'm stepping into all of the.
That's a good question. Because it's Like basically, so just a core thing is that for like our financial stability, like being able to project a month by month or a year by year budget into the future, monthly dues are the most helpful category, and we've really been pushing that as a default, and people have taken it up. Like we are even as overall numbers have been somewhat steadily declining, the monthly dues payers has gone up, which is great because people want to be part of a membership organization and they see the value of that. So lifetime membership was a category that was started like many years ago. I don't remember when exactly, but it's when DSA was a much smaller organization. I think it was something like $700 got you a lifetime membership. And then I think
I think it was 500, then 750, then 1,000, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I remember. I've been around.
To be a lifetime member, and we started to like see some problems with like some individuals who would just buy a lifetime membership because they were rich, but then make all sorts of claims about DSA in ways that they absolutely did not represent. So that was a problem.
Yeah.
But then also just like we started to realize like with this big membership spike since 2016, and lots of people paying like monthly dues that added up to however much per year, we were like, wait, $700 actually over time is not that much. Like
you have to take that 750 and put it into some bonds or something. You have to you have to have an investment fund, the DSA investment fund, in order for that to work.
Yeah. So we were just like, this category isn't really getting us much. Like people have already done it. Sure, they can be grandfathered in, but going forward, it's like, if you've been a DSA member paying monthly dues for enough years, like you end up paying that much. And, people don't seem to have a problem with that who are sticking it out. So
it's interesting just because I noticed, because I've been on this page a time or two. So I noticed that was missing. I was like, when did that change? Somebody said, this is a question. Can you join if you're not American? Or is this strictly an American group? Are you allowed to give you money every month?
Yeah, we're a 501c4. We're not a legally a party or a I think they're PAC. I think you're not allowed to give PACs money, right? If you're but since we're a 501c4, you can be. And we have members who are in various stages in the immigration process, but we do encourage people, like if you live in Canada, like we encourage you to join a Canadian socialist group, and if you live in France, we encourage you to do that. But yes, we're
join as many as you can is what you're saying.
Gotta catch them all. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so everybody, here's what we're gonna do. Everybody, if you're not already a DSA member, go ahead and join. Yeah, and I see that you guys have low income, introductory, and other levels for people. And it kind of depends upon your income. People can make a decision on what they want. So there you go, chat. You don't have an excuse. Join DSA, and that way you get to be involved in decisions that are being made. I know that there's a lot of people that have opinions on things DSA should do. I think this is everybody's favorite posture to take, which is the kind of slightly detached advisor who is not actually doing the things but is telling people, this is, if you did this, that would be really effective. So if you are one of those people, or if you are the unpaid advisors of DSA, become a dues paying member, and at least you'll be giving the organization $5 a month or $15 a month. So, you'll be making some sort of impact.
We call it the take tax.
Yeah.
You got to pay the take tax. You want to take, you got to pay the take tax.
Exactly. All right. Well, let me see. Let me see if I have any other smart questions from the chat. This is going to take a minute because
one real quick thing. My DMs are blowing up with comrades from New York City DSA who are very excited because they are launching their own Twitch stream, and wanted y'all to know about it. It's twitch.tv/NYCDSA. And so hopefully they will become good Twitch buddies for you.
Yeah. /NYCDSA.
Yep.
Okay, let's try it. They have 69 followers. I hate to break it,
nice.
but I'll be.
They can have some nice, but they can have some more.
Yeah, that is
Hurry
really
up,
nice.
we can get them to 420.
Yeah, let's get it to 420. Good point. Let me see here. So I guess I'll start it. I'll break the seal. Yeah, no, and listen, I think Twitch, it's funny because I don't know what it is. I guess it's because Twitch corporate wants to focus on the fact that they do video game stuff, and that's where the platform really took off. But the reality is that there is a large community of people doing kind of like daily talk shows and community building on here. Obviously Hassan being the most successful one, and me, in my own small way, doing pretty decently as well. It's a fun place to be able to it's really good for community building. And it's a little bit different than YouTube, which was more capped. If you have an audience, very traditional video, you watch, you put a comment at the bottom. And Twitch, as you've been watching, hopefully the chat is providing constant feedback, and they're kind of part of the project of the stream itself. So I think it's more inherently socialist, which is why I think we're doing better here than we are in, other places. And also it's a little bit more of a Wild West, which isn't, suppressing us as much. If I put, Israel Gaza genocide in my title, I'm not going to get disappeared from the internet on Twitch. Let's see. Oh, they want to ask you guys about kind of. Okay, I think there's a flight attendants are picketing today. Are you guys, are you in contact with like Sarah Nelson? I think she's a member, if I'm not mistaken.
She is a member. I have met her. We are MUFOs on Twitter, but we have not had, well, I haven't, since we started this job, contacted her as us, but I believe our labor commission people are in pretty regular contact with the folks at the folks on the left of the bigger unions, at least.
Yeah, and I know that there are a bunch of chapters that I think are doing actions today. Like I was visiting Atlanta DSA recently. I think they're supporting at rallies to support the flight attendants. So yeah, I think at least one chapter is doing it. I'm not sure about others.
All right, I gave the shout out to NYC DSA. Give them a follow. It should be popping up in your chat right now, everybody. All right, well, thank you guys so much. Is there any like closing thoughts that you have? I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you enjoyed our first conversation. Hopefully we'll have more.
Very much enjoyed it. This was really fun.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead, Megan. Why don't you go first, and then Ashik, you can finish this up.
Yeah. What am I just like?
Yeah, give us some closing thoughts and goodbye, and 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 a call to action, like any good organizer.
Totally. So the simplest call to action is, if you are not a member of DSA, join. DSAUSA.org/join. We need you. I see a lot of folks in the chat asking about, do you have a chapter here? Do you have a chapter there? Well, if we don't, we need you to help us start one. Like, that's part of the thing. DSA is us. It's not a other thing that we can just sort of will into existence. We actually have to build the thing. But we are really excited to build it with all of you. And we do, we're not doomers. We believe that we will, and have to win this. So
optimism of the will, pessimism of the intellect. So, we even if we see how bad shitty things are, we're like fighting. We're going to keep going, Yep. That's why we fight, because we know how much better things could be.
And it helps really banish the helplessness, which I know a lot of people are feeling particularly helpless. I think Sunday night really was a rough night for a lot of us. This is the way to at least feel like you're pushing back on, it's kind of stabbing outward in the belly of the beast.
Just to say one thing positive, I do think we are actually changing the conversation. The reality is we have a president who is not connected to these movements, but the vast majority of young people, 70% plus, are on our side. We have a generational gap that's opening and getting wider every year, and we have persuaded many people, about the right side of these issues. It's just a matter of sclerotic, Democratic Party machine full of 80-plus-year-olds that, refuses to relinquish power and keeps operating like it's 1991. That is our impediment. And, the more we keep pushing, eventually it's gonna, we're gonna break through. So keep pushing.
And it has changed. I mean, I'm 40. Yeah. So I turned 18 5 days before 9/11. So I basically like watched the arc of the last 20 years in this way. And it was different then. It was much worse. There were far fewer people fighting. And yeah, we're not, they're still going to vote to send money to Israel. We're not going to win that fight right now. But we have a lot more people fighting, and we have a lot more organized people fighting, and we have a lot more it's moving. The arc is bending, and it sucks to have it not be bent already, but it is bending, and it's we're doing it. So get in the fight.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Everybody join. All right, Ashik, bring us home.
Yeah, I'll just add as a closing thought, like seconding everything Megan said. I mean, having come out of climate organizing, I feel like I went through my doomer period just, almost a decade ago at this point, just realizing how bad the climate crisis is, like how much needs to change so fast, and it's not happening, and it can't happen in this political system right now. And then meeting other people in DSA who've been through that too, and getting us through that together. Like we spent so much time just like seeing horrible news on social media all the time, and then now we have a network of people who are committed to doing things together and building the alternative, and we're demonstrating it in real time. Like as bleak as everything is right now, there are lots of bright spots that are happening because DSA members organized to make them happen. So I think we're the most exciting thing on the left in this country right now, and we're going to keep building. And we're building a resilient org that's built to last, to become like a basically a party-like organization. So that's cutting past many decades of very like individualist sort of activism that happens, where it's just like your voice is what's important, and just having the right opinion is what matters. But like we're at a time where we need to really build something, and we're doing it. So join us.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate you joining me. And I don't know about you, chat, but we're gonna see what we can do as far as joining DSA. And it would really mean a lot to me if you all joined, because we need to have organizations like this that maybe I don't always agree with every chapter's every tweet, but it's about having chapters to disagree with as opposed to staring into the maw of MSNBC. So please join the organization, and if you have a problem with a specific person, that's great, but join the fight, join the conversation, and don't let the bastards win. So thank you guys so much for coming on. I hope to see you guys soon.
Yeah, we'd love to do this again sometime. Thanks so much.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was there you go, chat. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And I like the fact that they took on the tough questions head on and showed you that this organization is involved in every fight. Do you want to meet people that are actually fighting for the things you believe in? It isn't by voting Joe Biden and going, well, he's the lesser of two evils. How about you fight for an actual good? And that's what DSA provides. The opportunity for you to actually fight for a legitimate good. And so if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy this stream, then I'm going to ask you to continue supporting us and join DSA, even if you think your local chapter is stupid. And what was that cute story? I mean, they thought Mike from PA was fake. Fat loser, thank you for the 10 tier 1. Plexi, thank you for the gifted sub. Little Gremlin Bot, thank you for the tier 2. Do you happen to know if DSA is in contact with the Canadian one? I would have liked you to ask that question during the stream. What the fuck, guys? Here I am. I was swimming for questions, and now you're asking me questions? Like, what the fuck? They were right here. If you think your local chapter is stupid, the best thing you could do is join and run for steering committee. And not only that, like, listen, there are people that have bad takes in DSA. DSA doesn't make everyone in it not liberal. We're all liberals. We live in liberal hegemony. Like, that's the way it goes. I did ask twice. Oh, damn. Well, damn. Well, there you go. Hope you enjoyed it. Also, run and learn from steering if your chapter's going well. Exactly.